Hey guys, tonight we're going to step back, way back, into an era long past, where the quiet scratch of a quill was often the loudest sound in the room, and the soft glow of a flickering candle was the brightest light for hours on end. We're going to journey into the hushed, incredibly diligent world of a medieval scribe, an unsung artisan of words and images, painstakingly bringing texts to life one carefully rendered letter at a time. Imagine the gentle coolness of the rough-hewn stone walls around you, the faint, dry scent of beeswax and old vellum lingering in the still air, a sturdy, no-nonsense wooden desk before you, waiting patiently for the evening's work to begin. You are about to settle in, dip your quill into a small pot of dark ink, and immerse yourself so deeply in the creation of a beautiful, hand-copied manuscript that the world outside simply ceases to exist. Don't worry, the most strenuous part of your evening will probably be trying to keep your eyes open. This isn't exactly a high-octane adventure with dragons and knights. It's the supremely peaceful, often overlooked history of how books came to be. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now in the comments below, even if it's the middle of the night. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself standing on a cool, worn stone floor, the air still and cool, carrying a faint, earthy scent mixed with something dry and faintly sweet, like ancient wood and beeswax, a truly unique aroma that tells you exactly where you are. The light outside, what little there might have been hours ago, is now entirely gone, completely consumed by the encroaching twilight, casting long, soft shadows that stretch and dance through the high arched windows of what you immediately recognize as a scriptorium. This isn't a bustling marketplace, filled with the cries of hawkers and the clamor of crowds, nor is it a lively feasting hall, resounding with boisterous laughter and clanking tankards, or even the dusty stables you might recall from other historical dives, thick with the smell of hay and horse. No, this is something altogether different, a sanctuary of silence, a deeply hushed realm where the world outside seems to dim, its clamor fading to a distant, almost imperceptible murmur. You are here to work, to create, to meticulously reproduce the words and images that will fill the pages of a book. Not a book in the modern sense, mind you, with its slick, uniform paper and perfectly regimented typefaces spat out by machines. Oh no, you're about to contribute to a masterpiece, a one-of-a-kind treasure, painstakingly crafted by hand, a testament to dedication and precision. You walk slowly and deliberately through the scriptorium, your soft, simple shoes making almost no sound on the cool, worn stone. There are heavy, solid wooden desks around the large room, each one angled specifically to catch the dwindling natural light that might have filtered in earlier, though soon only the soft, warm glow of oil lamps or carefully trimmed candles will be needed to supplement the dwindling illumination. You pass by other scribes, some already deeply hunched over their work, their quills scratching softly against the parchment, a rhythmic, almost meditative whisper that fills the stillness. Others are still setting up, unrolling their protective cloths, sharpening their quills with a meticulous hand, perhaps stirring their freshly prepared inks. The atmosphere here is one of profound, focused calm, a shared dedication to the monumental task at hand. There's a subtle tension, too, a quiet pressure to perform accurately, to avoid costly mistakes that could ruin hours, days, or even weeks of work. But primarily, it's a pervasive sense of purpose, a shared undertaking that has been repeated day in and out for centuries, shaping the very intellectual fabric of the age.
You arrive at your own workstation. It's a simple, sturdy wooden desk, its top sloped at a comfortable angle designed to hold your parchment just so. There's a small, equally solid and unyielding wooden stool that you ease yourself onto with a soft sigh. The wood beneath your hands is smooth, worn by countless previous occupants, by countless hours of quiet, focused industry. You take a slow, deep breath, letting the profound stillness of the room settle over you, allowing its quiet energy to seep into your very bones. This is your entire world for the next few hours, a world defined by precision, by immense patience, and by the slow, deliberate act of creation, one careful stroke at a time. It's a surprisingly comfortable stillness, a gentle embrace of focused effort that allows the rest of the world, with all its demands and distractions, to simply fade away into the distant echoes of time. You begin to arrange your immediate workspace, a small, personal sanctuary within the larger room. On your desk, you find a small, beautifully carved wooden inkwell, heavy and stable, its dark liquid ready to receive your quill. Beside it rests a bundle of freshly cut quills, their tips still blunt, awaiting your touch and transformation. There's a small, flat piece of fine-grained stone for sharpening, and a tiny, sharp scribe's knife, its blade glinting faintly in the dimming light. A small, smooth piece of bone or ivory, perhaps a burnisher or a folding tool, lies waiting. You reach for a fine linen cloth, soft and clean, and carefully spread it over a portion of your desk, protecting the immaculate surface of your parchment from any stray marks or smudges that might otherwise occur. This is emphatically not a place for haste or sloppiness. Every action here is deliberate. Every tool has its precise place. Every precious material is treated with the utmost respect, for each one represents significant labor, considerable expense, and often a journey across vast distances. Mainstream fact number 1. Medieval scriptoria were primarily established within monasteries, cathedrals, and later universities, serving as the absolute core centers for the production and preservation of all forms of texts, religious treatises, classical literature, legal documents, and educational materials, long before the revolutionary advent of the printing press. This hallowed space you're in, it's part of that grand, slow process of knowledge preservation and transmission. You take a moment to stretch your fingers, feeling the familiar, subtle ache that often comes from anticipating hours of holding a quill in a precise grip. A quirky tidbit: some very practical medieval scribes would actually use little lead weights, shaped charmingly like tiny fish or simple discs, to hold down the edges of their parchment and prevent it from curling, especially on a humid day. Yours, thankfully, seems to be lying relatively flat for now. Historians still argue whether the precise angle of the scribe's desk, often called a lectern, truly optimized the scribe's posture for long-term comfort and efficiency, or if it was more about managing the light from the window or lamp and preventing accidental smudges on the wet ink. Either way, yours positioned comfortably enough for the task ahead. The last vestiges of light from the window are now just a memory, completely replaced by the soft, warm glow of an oil lamp, its wick carefully trimmed, casting dancing shadows on the stone walls around you. The gentle hiss of the flame, apart from the distant, almost imperceptible scratching of another scribe's quill, a comforting assurance that you are not alone in this quiet vigil. You pick up a quill, feeling the hollow lightness of the carefully chosen bird feather in your hand, its shaft smooth and cool. It's time to prepare your instrument. It's time to begin the work. With the tranquil ambiance of the scriptorium now fully embraced and your own designated workstation meticulously arranged, your initial, paramount task shifts to the precise preparation of your essential writing instruments, specifically the magnificent quill. You reach for one of the carefully chosen goose feathers, feeling its familiar, graceful curve and surprising spring in your hand. It's remarkably light, yet simultaneously rigid and resilient, A natural instrument perfectly suited by millennia of natural selection and centuries of human refinement for the intricate task of writing. Forget your sleek, mass-produced ballpoint pens or your effortlessly gliding rollerballs. This, my friend, is the original writing technology, honed and perfected over countless generations, a true marvel of organic engineering. You retrieve your small, exquisitely sharp scribe's knife, its polished blade gleaming faintly in the steady lamplight that now illuminates your space. With slow, deliberate, and utterly confident movements, you begin the delicate process of shaping the quill. You carefully strip away a few of the softer barbs from the lower part of the feather's shaft, just enough to create a comfortable, ergonomic grip that will prevent your fingers from cramping during the long hours ahead, without, crucially, weakening the shaft itself. It's a delicate dance between firmness and finesse, a true artisan's touch. Too much pressure, and you might irrevocably snap the precious quill. Too little, and it simply won't be suitable for the precise demands of medieval script. It's a bit like trying to open a particularly stubborn pickle jar with exactly the right amount of force. Not too much, not too little, just that perfect, almost intuitive enough to get the job done right. Next, and arguably most crucially, you turn your complete attention to the very tip of the quill. This is the epicenter of the magic, the precise point where the ink will flow, where the abstract thought will solidify into the tangible form of letters on the page. You angle the quill precisely against the sharpening stone, a smooth, fine-grained piece of slate, or perhaps a carefully chosen piece of sandstone. The stone feels cool and minutely gritty beneath the feather as you begin. With gentle, incredibly precise scraping motions, you pare down the very end of the quill, gradually creating a long, slender, yet robust point. You're not simply making it sharp in the way you'd sharpen a pencil. You are meticulously shaping it, thinning the walls of the quill so that it can hold a small, consistent reservoir of ink, allowing for a perfectly smooth, consistent flow as you write, without sudden blobs or frustrating dry spells. You focus intensely on achieving the precise angle of the cut, ensuring a smooth, impeccably even surface. This is emphatically not like sharpening a pencil in a machine, which yields a uniform result. Each quill, being a product of nature, is unique, and you have to adapt your technique to its particular characteristics, its subtle curves and inherent strengths. It's a personal, intimate relationship, really, between you and your chosen feather, a dialogue of craftsmanship. Once the point is sharp and perfectly angled, you perform the most critical and delicate step of all, cutting the nib. With a tiny, precise, almost surgical incision, using the very tip of your sharp scribe's knife, you make a vertical slit, perhaps 2 to 3 millimeters long, down the exact center of the newly pared down point. This minute slit, barely visible to the untrained eye, is the unsung hero of the quill pen. It's what allows the ink, through the marvel of capillary action, to travel steadily and consistently down the quill to the writing surface. Without it, the ink would simply sit there, stubbornly refusing to flow, or, worse, blob out in an uncontrolled, page-ruining mess. Then, you make a tiny horizontal cut across the very tip of the quill, shaping the exact broadness of the stroke. This final cut determines how thick or thin your lines will be, how bold your downstrokes appear, and how fine your hair-thin upstrokes will be. A wider, broader cut for large, bold, majestic script suitable for titles or important headings. A narrower, finer one for delicate, intricate writing required for the main body of the text. You carefully test the newly cut nib on a small scrap piece of parchment, making a few experimental strokes, feeling the slight, satisfying drag, and meticulously assessing the ink flow. A quick practice dip in your inkwell, a smooth glide across the surface, leaving a perfectly formed character. Yes, this feels good. This quill is truly ready. It's a bit like tuning a complex musical instrument. A tiny, seemingly insignificant adjustment can make all the difference in the performance of the entire piece. Beyond the star of the show, the quill, you also prepare your other indispensable tools. You retrieve your stylus, a blunt, pointed tool typically made of bone, lead, or sometimes a piece of smooth, polished metal. This isn't for writing with ink, but for the crucial preliminary step of ruling lines on your parchment, a preparatory task we'll delve into in more detail very soon. You might also have a compass, a small, elegant instrument with two pointed legs, used for drawing perfect circles, arcs, or for precisely measuring distances and proportions on your page. Adjacent to it lies your straight edge, a smooth, perfectly true piece of wood or bone, indispensable for drawing perfectly straight lines, ensuring the geometric precision of your layout. And perhaps the most humble yet vital of these tools is the pricker, a sharp, fine-pointed needle-like instrument. This is used to make tiny, almost imperceptible holes along the very outer margins of the parchment sheet. These tiny holes, often almost invisible once the writing is done, are absolutely crucial. They act as precise, unwavering guides for your straight edge, ensuring that every single line of text on your page is perfectly parallel, uniformly spaced, and creates a consistent and aesthetically pleasing block of script. Without these meticulous preparations, your beautiful lettering would quickly devolve into a wavy, unreadable mess, looking less like a sacred text and more like a fever dream of disorganized scribbling. Imagine trying to build a perfectly straight stone wall without a level or a plumb line. That's the kind of chaos you're so diligently trying to avoid.
These seemingly simple tools, despite their humble appearance, demand immense skill, unwavering consistency, and profound understanding from the user. You don't just pick them up and expect perfection on your first try. Oh no, you earn it through countless hours of rigorous practice, through the thousands upon thousands of letters you've already penned, through the muscle memory ingrained deep within your hand. Each precise cut of the knife, each careful scrape of the sharpening stone is performed with an ingrained intuition, a quiet confidence born of countless hours spent perfecting your meticulous craft. You might even have a small eraser on hand, not the rubbery kind you're familiar with today, but a piece of fine pumice stone or even a small, specially sharpened knife used for carefully scraping away any mistakes, a painstaking process that demands extreme caution. Because, let's be honest, even the most meticulous and experienced scribe makes errors from time to time. Though, if you make too many, you might find yourself assigned to copying less glamorous or more monotonous texts, like, say, a particularly long and mind-numbingly dull list of feudal taxes or a detailed inventory of monastic sheep. Nobody, and I mean nobody, wants that. Mainstream fact number 2. While goose quills were by far the most common writing instrument used in medieval Europe due to their widespread availability, flexibility, and excellent ability to hold a consistent amount of ink, other bird feathers, such as those from swan, crow, or even owl, were also employed. Swan quills, for instance, were often prized for larger, bolder script, while crow quills, being finer, might be reserved for more delicate, intricate work or marginalia. Imagine trying to find an owl feather that was just the right size and stiffness after a particularly long day of scribing. That's dedication, or perhaps just a very patient birdwatcher. A quirky tidbit, some medieval scribes would occasionally carve a small unique notch or symbol onto the shaft of their quill, not for decoration, but to mark which batch of ink they were currently using, or to signify a particular chapter they were working on, or even as a subtle personal signature in a world of otherwise rigid calligraphic conformity. It was a secret language only they understood, woven directly into their primary tool. Historians still widely argue whether medieval scribes, particularly those in specialized workshops, employed distinctly different quill preparations or cuts for various types of manuscripts. For instance, a stiffer, broader-nibbed quill for robust legal documents versus a softer, much finer one for delicate, intricately illuminated psalters or personal prayer books. The exact specifications varied widely across regions and individual preferences, but the fundamental principles of crafting a perfectly functional quill remained remarkably consistent across centuries. You just know, as you hold it now, that this one feels absolutely right for tonight's particular work, providing that perfect balance of stiffness, flexibility, and ink flow. You take a final, comprehensive look at your perfectly prepared station, the impeccably sharpened quill resting patiently beside the inkwell, the stylus and ruler poised, a small, soft leather pouch holding your compass and pricker within easy reach, and the pristine stack of blank parchment sheets waiting patiently for their transformation. A faint, almost imperceptible aroma of freshly cut feather drifts gently in the air, mixing subtly with the existing, comforting scent of beeswax and the unique dry aroma of old paper. Except, of course, it's not paper, is it? Not yet. It's vellum, or parchment, the very foundation of your work, a surface that feels almost alive beneath your sensitive fingertips. You feel a quiet, profound sense of readiness, a calm, focused anticipation. The noise of the outside world, if it ever even existed in this timeless place, is completely gone now. They're only the lamp's soft, unwavering glow, the boundless potential of the blank page, and the steady, rhythmic beat of your own heart. All is set. With your quill perfectly cut and your other tools meticulously arranged, your attention now shifts to the very canvas upon which your words and images will come to life, the parchment. This isn't just paper, friend, not by a long shot. This is a material that embodies an extraordinary journey, a transformation from living creature to the enduring, almost luminous surface beneath your hand. The quality of your finished manuscript, its very longevity through the centuries, hinges entirely on the painstaking and often quite unpleasant process of turning animal hide into this pristine writing surface. You reach for a stack of these prepared sheets, feeling their surprising thickness and smooth, almost leathery texture. They are pale, often creamy white, with a subtle grain that hints at their organic origins. Unlike paper, which is made from plant fibers, parchment, or vellum, a finer grade, typically made from calfskin, though the terms are often used interchangeably, is made from animal skin, most commonly calf, goat, or sheep. Yes, you heard that right. Before you even think about putting quill to page, an animal has given its hide to preserve the knowledge you are about to transcribe. This thought alone, for many medieval scribes, imbued the material with a deeper significance, a sense of respect for the sacrifice involved. It's certainly a more involved process than just hitting print, isn't it? The preparation began long before the hide ever reached the scriptorium. First, the animal hide would be cleaned of all flesh and fat, then soaked in a solution of lime, calcium hydroxide, and water for several days, sometimes even weeks. This process, often called liming, helped loosen the hair and flesh and began to break down the natural oils and fats in the skin. Imagine the pungent, almost caustic smell emanating from those vats, a truly unpleasant odor that would cling to the air around the parchment makers. This was definitely not a job for the faint of nose or the squeamish. After the liming, the hide would be stretched taut onto a wooden frame, often called a hearse. While still damp and stretched, the skin was vigorously scraped on both sides to remove any remaining hair, flesh, and subcutaneous layers. Specialized curved knives, sometimes called lunella because they resembled a crescent moon, were used for this arduous task. This scraping was done repeatedly, often by a team of parchmenteurs, until the hide was reduced to a uniformly thin, clean membrane. The tension on the frame was constantly adjusted as the hide dried and stretched, ensuring it remained perfectly flat and didn't wrinkle. This part of the process required immense strength and incredible precision, as uneven scraping could lead to thin spots or holes in the final parchment. A single flaw could render an entire large hide unusable for a high-quality manuscript. Once scraped and dried, the parchment was further refined.
It might be sanded or rubbed with pumice stone to create an even smoother, more receptive surface for writing. Sometimes, chalk or powdered white lead was rubbed into the surface to reduce greasiness and make it even whiter and more absorbent for ink. Each of these steps, from the initial liming to the final sanding, was meticulously performed, often by specialized artisans called parchmenters or vellum makers, who were distinct from the scribes themselves, though larger monasteries might have had their own internal production. This division of labor underscores the sheer complexity and expertise required at each stage of book production. Mainstream fact number 3. A single large medieval Bible could require the skins of anywhere from 100 to over 200 calves, goats, or sheep, making parchment an incredibly expensive and labor-intensive material, often accounting for the largest single cost in manuscript production. You touch the parchment again, feeling its smooth, slightly taut surface. It has a subtle translucency when held up to the light, and you can sometimes even discern the faint outlines of the animal's vein patterns, a ghostly reminder of its former life. Unlike paper, which has a distinct grain, parchment has a hair side, the outer side of the animal skin, often slightly darker and smoother, and a flesh side, the inner side, usually paler and softer. Scribes would typically arrange the leaves so that 2 hair sides faced each other when the book was open and 2 flesh sides faced each other, creating a uniform appearance and preventing uneven warping. It's these seemingly small details that make a massive difference in the quality and longevity of the finished product. A quirky tidbit. To ensure the parchment remained flat and didn't curl, especially in changing humidity, some scribes would use heavy weights made of lead or stone, sometimes carved into intriguing shapes, to hold down the corners of the page they were working on. Others would even gently mist the parchment with water mixed with egg white before writing, believing it made the surface more receptive to ink and helped prevent bleeding. Imagine trying to get that mist just right without saturating the page. Historians still argue whether the subtle variations in parchment quality across different regions of medieval Europe were primarily due to differences in animal breeds, local water quality for the liming process, or the specific trade secrets passed down through generations of parchment makers. You, however, are simply grateful for the pristine quality of the sheets before you, knowing that many hands and much effort went into their creation. The faint, almost imperceptible scent of the prepared parchment, a dry, slightly animalistic aroma, fills your nostrils as you gently spread a sheet out on your linen-covered desk. It lies perfectly flat, its surface waiting, an empty stage ready for the words and images that will soon adorn it. You've prepared your quill, now you've considered your canvas. The journey to the finished book is long, but each step is deliberate, each material infused with history and human effort. You feel a quiet respect for the process, a deep appreciation for the craft that transformed something so raw into something so refined, so capable of holding the very thoughts of humanity for centuries. The light from your lamp casts a warm glow, revealing the subtle beauty of the unblemished surface ready for its next transformation. With your pristine parchment laid out before you, the stage is now perfectly set for the infusion of color and meaning. Your next task, before a single word of text or a vibrant stroke of illumination graces the page, involves preparing the ink and the various pigments that will ultimately bring your manuscript to life. This isn't a simple matter of unscrewing a cap from a plastic bottle as you might do today, or casually refilling a printer cartridge. Oh no! The creation of medieval inks and vibrant paints was an intricate, often laborious, and sometimes almost alchemical process, relying entirely on natural ingredients, a deep understanding of their properties, and a touch of medieval ingenuity. You first turn your attention to the inkwell, a small, weighty vessel typically crafted from wood, horn, lead, or sometimes even stone. It holds the fundamental writing fluid, iron gall ink. This isn't just a simple black liquid, it's a complex chemical concoction that actively evolves and darkens over time as it reacts with the air, becoming incredibly permanent. Its primary ingredients are surprisingly mundane, yet powerfully reactive. Oak galls, those woody spherical growths you sometimes see on oak trees, formed by the irritating activity of wasps laying their eggs. Vitriol, which is iron sulfate, often derived from naturally occurring mineral deposits. Gum arabic, a natural resin exuded from acacia trees, and, of course, water. The oak galls, rich in tannic acid, would have been meticulously crushed into a fine powder, then steeped in water for several days, sometimes even boiled, to extract their potent tannins. This dark tea-like solution would then be carefully mixed with the vitriol. When the iron sulfate reacts chemically with the tannic acid, it forms iron tannate, which is the actual black pigment. The gum arabic, a crucial binder, acts as a natural adhesive, helping the ink adhere firmly to the parchment and, just as importantly, preventing it from bleeding too much or spreading unevenly across the fibrous surface. Imagine the pungent, slightly metallic, almost vinegary smell as these humble ingredients were brewed and slowly matured together, a distinct aroma that filled medieval workshops. The preparation wasn't quick. It often involved grinding, steeping, boiling, filtering, and then letting the concoction settle and mature for days or even weeks. A truly fresh batch of iron gall ink might even appear pale, almost gray, when first applied to the parchment. But over time, as it reacts with the oxygen in the air, it oxidizes, deepening into that rich, permanent, unmistakable black you see in ancient, centuries-old manuscripts. This remarkable permanence was a key feature. It meant your painstakingly copied words would endure, steadfast and unfading for generations. A quirky tidbit, some medieval recipes for ink actually included small amounts of wine or vinegar to improve the solubility of the gall extracts or the flow of the ink itself, giving it a subtle historical bouquet. You certainly won't find that in your modern printer cartridge, will you? Now, beyond the basic black ink for your main text lies the dazzling, vivid world of pigments for illumination. These were almost always prepared separately, meticulously ground to incredibly fine powders, then mixed with a specific binder, typically egg yolk, which forms the basis of tempera paint, or gum arabic, and then carefully thinned with water to achieve the desired consistency. Each glorious color came from a specific, often exotic natural source, and extracting and refining them was another painstaking, highly specialized process, fraught with its own challenges.
The most prized and astonishingly vibrant blue was ultramarine, derived from lapis lazuli, a rare and incredibly precious semi-precious stone imported from the distant mines of Afghanistan. Grinding this hard stone into a fine powder suitable for painting was an incredibly laborious task, often performed by specialists, as improper grinding could result in a dull, gray, lifeless pigment instead of a vibrant, heavenly blue. It was so valuable, so costly, that it was often reserved exclusively for the most important elements of an illustration, like the Virgin Mary's robes or the heavenly skies. More common, though still beautiful, blues came from plants like woad or indigo, or minerals like azurite, which produced a slightly greener blue. For reds, you'd have vermilion, made from cinnabar, a mercury sulfide mineral, beautiful but quite toxic to handle, so careful. Red lead, or rich crimson pigments derived from insects like kermes or dried roots like madder. Yellows might come from the bright, striking mineral orpiment, another arsenic sulfide mineral, quite poisonous, definitely don't lick your brushes with that one. Saffron threads, or various plant extracts. Greens could be made from minerals like malachite, a copper carbonate mineral, or various plant-based extracts, often less stable over time. White usually came from lead white, another toxic one, careful where you leave your fingers, or finely ground chalk. And various shades of brown were readily available from abundant earth pigments like umber or ochre. Each pigment possessed its own unique properties, its own ideal texture, its own optimal fineness of grind, and its own subtle hue, which a skilled illuminator would intimately understand and patiently coax forth. Mainstream fact number 4.
The range of pigments available to medieval scribes and illuminators, though entirely natural and often sourced from afar, was remarkably diverse and capable of producing incredibly vibrant colors, allowing for a rich palette despite the lack of any synthetic dyes or paints. The cost and rarity of certain pigments, particularly ultramarine, heavily influenced how they were used and which elements of a manuscript received such lavish treatment. You gaze at the array of small pots on your desk, each containing a tiny amount of powdered pigment, a concentrated burst of color. You gently mix a pinch of bright red vermilion with a drop of water and a speck of prepared egg yolk on a smooth, clean mixing palette made of ceramic or stone. You feel the abrasive texture as it blends under your finger or a small spatulate tool, slowly transforming into a smooth, brilliant paste, radiating its intense hue even in the dim light. The quality of the grind was paramount. Coarsely ground pigments would appear grainy, dull, and would not adhere well, while finely ground ones would yield a smooth, luminous, almost glowing color. Historians still argue whether certain larger monastic scriptoria had specialized workshops dedicated solely to the tedious and often dangerous task of pigment preparation, or if scribes and illuminators commonly prepared their own colors from raw materials as needed, becoming chemists as much as artists. Either way, someone, somewhere, put in an enormous amount of manual labor to get these rich, potent colors ready for your brush. The air around you now carries the subtle, complex scent of the iron gall ink, metallic, earthy, slightly vinegary, mingling with the fainter, earthy notes of the various pigments, a distinct and authentic aroma that truly hints at the natural origins of all your materials. You realize profoundly the immense amount of effort, the tireless patience, and the often hidden dangers that go into every single component of the book you are about to create, long before your perfectly sharpened quill even touches the parchment. From the animal that gave its precious skin, to the plants and minerals that yielded their vibrant colors, to the meticulous hands that processed them all, each element is a testament to painstaking patience, ancient knowledge, and extraordinary craftsmanship. It makes the task of writing and illuminating seem not just important, but almost reverent, a sacred duty. You pick up your prepared quill again, dip it into the rich, dark black ink, and feel its cool, slightly viscous texture as it coats the nib. The surface of your parchment beckons, its unblemished surface waiting patiently, ready to receive its very first indelible marks. The transformation is about to begin. With your pristine parchment laid out before you, its smooth, almost glowing surface ready to receive the intricate dance of ink, the stage is now perfectly set for the infusion of structure and order. Your next task, before a single word is committed, involves the meticulous art of ruling and layout. This isn't merely about drawing lines, it's about establishing the very architecture of your manuscript, a critical step that ensures its beauty, its readability, and its lasting consistency. You can't just start writing willy-nilly across this expensive prepared animal skin. Chaos would quickly ensue, and your script, no matter how elegant, would look less like a sacred text and more like the frantic scribblings of a particularly caffeinated pigeon. You first choose your implement for ruling. For the vast majority of your text lines, the invisible guides that will underpin your script, you typically use a stylus. This isn't a writing instrument that leaves an ink mark like your quill. Instead, it's a blunt, pointed tool, often made of bone, lead, or even silver, that creates a faint, incised line on the parchment by pressing into the surface. This indentation is incredibly subtle, almost imperceptible to the casual glance once the text is applied, but it provides a tactile guide for your quill, allowing you to write perfectly straight lines without the risk of ink smudges or the visual distraction of actual ink ruling marks. For more prominent divisions, such as the clear boundaries of your text block, the crisp separation of columns, or for more decorative borders that will remain visible, you might indeed use a lead point, a piece of lead that leaves a light, erasable gray mark, much like an early version of a modern pencil, or even a fine brown ink line that will remain visible, perhaps to delineate sections for illumination. You pick up your preferred bone stylus now, feeling its smooth, cool surface beneath your fingers, a familiar comfort. Its worn contours speak of countless hours spent guiding other scribes' hands before yours. Before you can draw any lines, however, you need to mark precisely where those lines will go. This involves the meticulous process of pricking the parchment. You retrieve your pricker, which is essentially a very sharp, needle-like tool. Holding a long, thin straight edge, often a carefully planed wooden ruler, or for more precise work, a taut string stretched between two fixed points, firmly along the very outer edge of your parchment, you carefully make tiny, almost imperceptible holes. You make a hole at the very top of your intended text block and another at the very bottom, and then a precise series of holes down each side, spaced according to the desired height of your lines of text. This is painstaking work, requiring absolute concentration, as the accuracy of these initial pricked holes will determine the straightness and consistency of every single line of script on the entire page. Imagine trying to thread a tiny, invisible needle in the dim light of a medieval scriptorium hundreds of times over for just one page. That's the level of unwavering focus required. A single misplaced hole, a tiny deviation, could throw off an entire column of text, a minor aesthetic annoyance that would quietly drive a perfectionist scribe absolutely batty over the ensuing hours or days of copying. It's like setting the foundation for a very intricate building. If the first few stones are off, the whole structure will lean, subtly but irrevocably. Once your parchment is meticulously pricked, you connect the dots, literally. You lay your ruler, a smooth, straight piece of wood or bone, carefully made to be perfectly true, between the corresponding pricked marks. Then, with your stylus, you draw the horizontal lines across the page, defining the base of each line of text. You press just hard enough to create a discernible indentation, without tearing or damaging the precious parchment, feeling the subtle give of the vellum. You repeat this precise process for every single line of text on the page, feeling the gentle, dry scrape of the stylus against the surface, a soft whisper that is utterly different from the scratch of the quill. After the horizontal lines are complete, you then rule the vertical bounding lines, creating the precise columns for your text and defining the generous margins around them. Sometimes, scribes would even rule additional faint lines for guiding the height of initial capitals, or to help with consistent letter spacing between words, demonstrating an almost obsessive attention to detail that would make a modern graphic designer weep with appreciation. The layout of the page itself was a critical, artistic, and practical decision, never left to chance or improvisation. Scribes and manuscript designers followed established conventions, carefully planning the number of columns, often one for simpler, more intimate texts like psalters or prayer books, or two for larger, more complex works like the Bible or scholarly commentaries. The size of the margins, which were often quite generous, serving not only as aesthetic framing, but also allowing ample space for commentary, corrections, marginal notes, or later magnificent illuminations, and the precise spacing between lines. This careful, premeditated planning ensured that the finished book would not only be aesthetically pleasing and harmonious, but also incredibly easy to read, a testament to the foresight and collaborative effort of its creators. Mainstream fact number 5, the practice of ruling lines on parchment, though labor-intensive and often invisible in the final product when done with a stylus, was absolutely essential for maintaining the uniform appearance, legibility, and visual hierarchy of medieval manuscripts, preventing the text from veering wildly across the page and allowing for consistent, beautiful blocks of script. A quirky tidbit: some medieval texts have actual physical evidence of dummy or template pages, where scribes practiced their ruling patterns, tested new quill cuts, or experimented with ink and pigment flow before committing to the final precious parchment. It's like a medieval scratch pad or a hidden artist's sketchbook, only slightly more formal and often found carefully tucked away within larger, less important manuscripts. Imagine finding a page where some monk just scribbled "My quill is bad" over and over. Historians still argue whether the precise dimensions of medieval manuscript pages and the carefully calculated proportions of their text blocks were primarily based on underlying mathematical or geometric principles, perhaps even derived from classical architectural ratios, or if they evolved primarily from practical considerations, such as maximizing the amount of text on a costly sheet of parchment, combined with purely aesthetic preferences for balance and harmony. You, however, are just focused on getting these lines perfectly straight, a quiet testament to thousands of hours of practiced discipline. You might adjust your posture subtly, leaning slightly closer to the parchment, your breath held in a soft, focused sigh as you draw a particularly long ruling line, ensuring no wobble or deviation. The air in the scriptorium remains cool and still, permeated only by the faint, comforting scent of vellum and beeswax. The only sounds, the soft, dry scrape of your stylus and the distant, rhythmic scratching of other quills. The faint pressed lines emerge on the parchment, a subtle but undeniable grid that quietly brings order to the blankness, transforming an empty surface into a structured field. You can already visualize the black words filling these precisely defined spaces, the elegant letters flowing effortlessly along the unseen paths you are now creating. It's a foundational step, often overlooked when admiring a finished illuminated manuscript, but absolutely indispensable to the beauty, clarity, and enduring legacy of the finished work. The blank page, once an intimidating void, now feels like a meticulously prepared garden bed, ready to receive its precious seeds of knowledge. It's a silent, almost meditative process, each line a commitment to precision, each measurement a promise of perfection. The anticipation builds with each completed stroke.
With your parchment meticulously ruled and your ink and pigments ready, you finally reach the heart of the scribe's work, the slow, deliberate, and deeply engrossing act of writing each letter. This is where your practiced hand transforms the blank, structured surface into a repository of knowledge, poetry, or sacred text. You dip your perfectly cut quill into the dark, rich fluid of the inkwell, feeling the cool, slightly viscous ink coat the nib. You've mastered the art of drawing up just the right amount, a perfect bead clinging to the finely slit point, ready to flow effortlessly onto the vellum. This isn't a rush. There's no pressure to produce words at lightning speed, no frantic click-clack of a keyboard or the impatient hum of a modern printer waiting for your command. In fact, speed is the very enemy of precision and beauty here, a constant temptation to be resisted. You bring the quill to the parchment, positioning it gently and precisely at the very start of your first ruled line. You hold the quill with a specific grip, a comfortable yet firm hold that allows for both supreme control over the delicate nib and the necessary fluidity for smooth, sweeping strokes. As you press down, you feel the subtle, almost responsive resistance of the vellum, the almost imperceptible friction as the nib begins its glide across the prepared surface. The first stroke is made, often a thin, crisp hairline, followed by a broader, more substantial one as you apply slightly more pressure or change the angle of the nib,
creating the distinctive thicks and thins that are the hallmark of medieval script. You hear the faint yet deeply satisfying scratching sound of the quill against the parchment, a rhythmic whisper that is the enduring soundtrack of your quiet evening, and indeed of scriptoria across the continent for centuries. It's a sound that speaks of diligence, concentration, and the tangible creation of knowledge, a constant testament to human dedication. Each individual letter is not merely written, it is carefully drawn, formed with conscious effort, immense focus, and thousands of hours of practiced hand movements. You meticulously consider the perfect, graceful curves of an O, the straight, unwavering descent of an L, the elegant ascender of a B that reaches just the right height, touching a subtly implied upper guideline. There's a particular artistry to each letter form, a standardized yet subtly personal style that defines your unique scribal hand, a visual signature as distinct as any modern fingerprint. You maintain a consistent pressure, a steady, measured pace, ensuring that the ink flows evenly from the nib and that each character is perfectly aligned with its neighbors, adhering precisely to the invisible guides you painstakingly created during the ruling process. You might occasionally stop, lift the quill, and observe your work from a slight distance, perhaps even tilting the parchment slightly to catch the ambient lamplight, ensuring the ink is drying correctly and the lines are true, before you gently place the quill back down and continue. This process is fundamentally different from what you might consider writing today, say on a glowing screen where a single keystroke produces a perfect, uniform character. Here, every individual stroke contributes to the final letter, every curve and angle is a deliberate choice, and every letter, in turn, contributes to the word, the line, and the page. It's a deeply physical, tactile connection to the text you are creating. You feel the subtle drag of the quill, the gentle give of the parchment beneath. Your muscles remember the forms, the shapes, the precise sequences of strokes needed for each character. It's less like typing and more like a very precise, disciplined form of drawing, a meditative repetition where the mind can settle into the calm rhythm of the hand. You might even find yourself silently reciting the words as you write them, letting their meaning resonate in the quiet, candlelit space, deepening your connection to the content.
Mainstream fact number 6. Before the widespread advent of the printing press in the mid-15th century, all books in Europe were painstakingly copied by hand, primarily by scribes working within the controlled, often monastic environments of monasteries, cathedrals, or burgeoning university scriptoria. This manual reproduction was the absolute cornerstone of knowledge dissemination and preservation for over 1,000 years, making each completed manuscript a unique and incredibly valuable artifact, representing countless hours of labor and precious resources. A quirky tidbit: some medieval scribes would occasionally use small, very fine sand or powdered cuttlefish bone or even powdered eggshells sprinkled lightly over freshly written text to help dry the ink faster and prevent accidental smudging. It was a kind of primitive blotting paper designed to absorb excess moisture. Imagine trying to get that trick right without leaving a permanent gritty texture or, worse, smearing your perfect script. Historians still argue whether the prevalence of certain highly formal script styles, like the highly condensed and angular Gothic textura, often seen in later medieval Bibles, was primarily due to aesthetic preferences of the era, an improvement in overall readability for that period's readers, or rather a pragmatic consideration for maximizing the amount of text that could fit onto a single, expensive sheet of parchment, thus reducing the number of costly animal skins required for a full manuscript. You, however, are simply focused on producing the most beautiful and legible example of the prescribed script, a skill that has taken you years to hone. As you write, you find yourself occasionally needing to redip your quill into the inkwell.
You learn, through sheer experience, to anticipate precisely when the ink is running low, avoiding the frustrating moment when the quill begins to drag across the page, leaving a faint, broken, almost ghostly line. A quick practice dip, a gentle flick or two against the rim of the inkwell to remove any excess ink and prevent unwanted blobs, and you're ready to continue your steady work. It's a constant, subtle dance between writing and reloading, a micropause in the grand rhythm of creation. You might even have a small piece of clean linen cloth or a dedicated sponge nearby, used for wiping the quill clean if it gets too clogged with parchment fibers, or to dab away any truly errant blobs of ink that, despite your best efforts, occasionally fall. Because, let's be honest, those happen even to the best of us, and correcting them on parchment without leaving a trace is a whole other level of gentle, controlled panic, often involving a sharp knife and meticulous scraping, a process so delicate it would make a brain surgeon sweat. No pressure, right? The lamp's glow, or the soft, fading twilight filtering through the arched windows, casts a warm, steady light over your work, illuminating the emerging words as they fill the ruled lines. The scriptorium is almost entirely quiet, save for the collective chorus of scratching quills, a symphony of focused effort. You feel the subtle shift in your posture, the gentle stretch of your fingers and wrist as the hours progress and your body adapts to the demands of the task. Each completed line is a small, satisfying victory, each finished page a testament to your patience and dedication. You are not just copying words, you are preserving them, ensuring their survival for future generations, acting as a crucial link in the chain of knowledge. It's a noble task, carried out with a calm, unwavering focus, one careful stroke at a time. The world outside, with its noise and demands, has completely faded from your awareness. There is only the rhythm of your hand, the soft whisper of the quill, and the silent, beautiful, growing presence of the text under your steady gaze. As the rhythmic scratch of your quill slowly fills the meticulously ruled lines of the parchment, a new dimension of your manuscript begins to emerge, transforming mere text into an object of profound beauty and spiritual significance. The illuminations spark. This isn't just about adding pretty pictures or decorative flourishes, though it certainly achieves that. More profoundly, it's about enriching the meaning of the sacred words, drawing the eye to key passages, and often adding a complex layer of visual interpretation to the theological concepts or narratives within the text. You glance at the margins, particularly at the beginning of a new chapter, a significant psalm, or a major section where the largest and most intricate transformations will occur. These are the places where the manuscript will truly come alive, where light, both physical and metaphorical, will be painted onto the page. The initial step in this dazzling process, after the text itself has been meticulously copied and dried, is often the addition of decorated initials or historiated initials. These are the large, often incredibly elaborate capital letters that mark the beginning of a new paragraph, a significant sentence, or an entire textual division, standing far grander than anything you could ever type on a modern keyboard. Sometimes they are purely decorative, a symphony of intertwined vines, intricate geometric patterns, or fantastical creatures that seem to grow organically from the letter form itself, spilling into the margins like an artistic explosion. Other times, they are historiated, meaning they contain a small scene or miniature figure directly related to the text itself, drawing the reader directly into the story or the theological concept being conveyed. You might begin this process by sketching out the initial with a very light lead point, a piece of lead that leaves a faint, easily erasable gray line barely visible on the pristine vellum. This initial sketch is tentative, a conceptual blueprint, allowing for careful adjustments and refinements before any permanent ink is applied. You meticulously consider the balance, the flow, and the way the decorative elements will eventually interact with the surrounding black text, ensuring a visual harmony that delights the eye. Once the initial sketch is refined and conceptually approved, perhaps by the head scribe, the abbot, or even the wealthy patron who commissioned the work, depending on the scriptorium's hierarchy and the manuscript's overall importance, You then proceed to outline the initial with a fine brown or black ink. This delicate, almost hair-thin brown ink outline acts as the precise boundary for the forthcoming vibrant colors and, crucially, for the shimmering gold leaf that will be applied later. You meticulously trace the intricate curves, the sharp angles, and the elegant flourishes of your design, ensuring each line is clean, unwavering, and absolutely precise. This outlining process demands an incredibly steady hand, immense patience, and an almost superhuman level of concentration, as any tremor or slip could irreversibly mar the beauty of the design, necessitating time-consuming and extremely difficult corrections. Think of it as creating the ultimate, most intricate coloring book you've ever seen, but one where the pages are made of precious animal skin and the crayons you'll eventually use are literally worth their weight in gold. A slight misstep here could mean hours of painstaking work with a sharp knife, carefully scraping away a mistake from the delicate parchment, and perhaps even a fresh start. Beyond the majestic initials, many manuscripts feature extensive border decorations. These could range from simple pen flourishes, known as penwork initials, extending elegantly from the larger initials and spiraling into the margins, to incredibly elaborate foliage and floral patterns that eventually frame the entire text block, sometimes even incorporating tiny animals, whimsical birds, or strange hybrid mythical creatures that seem to crawl, perch, or frolic along the edges of the page, almost as if they're interacting with the text itself. These borders were often subtly designed to complement the main text, perhaps reinforcing its theological themes through symbolic flora and fauna, or simply adding layers of visual delight and surprise for the careful, attentive reader. You might find yourself delicately adding tiny ivy leaves, perfectly rendered in various shades of vibrant green, or intricate blue cornflowers, each petal meticulously painted to capture its natural beauty.
Medieval manuscript illumination was a highly specialized and distinct art form, so much so that it was often performed by separate artisans known as illuminators or miniaturists, rather than by the scribes who copied the text. This division of labor, particularly in larger, more well-funded scriptoria, allowed for an even higher level of artistic skill and specialization in the final product. However, in smaller monastic houses or more remote workshops, a single talented monk or nun might indeed perform both the arduous scribal copying and the intricate artistic illumination, a true master of all trades, capable of astonishing versatility. A quirky tidbit, some of the border designs in manuscripts are so intricate and filled with life that scholars have found countless drolleries, small, whimsical, often humorous, and sometimes even rude or satirical figures or scenes tucked away within the foliage or at the very bottom of the margins. These were apparently created for the amusement of the scribe or the careful reader, a little visual secret or inside joke. Imagine finding a tiny armored rabbit jousting with a snail, or a mischievous monkey playing bagpipes, all hidden in plain sight within a serious religious text. Historians still argue whether the specific placement and content of these marginal drolleries held deeper symbolic meaning, served as a subtle form of visual commentary on the adjacent text, or were simply an unbridled outlet for the illuminator's personal creativity and perhaps a touch of subtle rebellion against the solemnity of the main work. For now, you're just focused on making sure your outlines are absolutely flawless for whatever whimsicalness might eventually reside within them, knowing that a perfect outline is the silent promise of future brilliance. The preparatory work for these decorations also involved ensuring the parchment was perfectly smooth and receptive, especially for areas that would receive the precious gold. For these specific sections, the surface sometimes needed an additional, very subtle gesso-like preparation layer, a slightly raised, perfectly smooth bed that would allow the gold leaf to adhere without issue and to sit proud of the page, giving it an even greater shimmer and three-dimensional quality. This layer, typically composed of gypsum or chalk mixed with an adhesive, was meticulously smoothed and allowed to dry. You might gently burnish a small area with a smooth agate stone, rubbing it carefully to create an impossibly slick, almost glassy surface, preparing it meticulously for the gold.
This meticulous preparation ensures the gold will adhere properly, without flaking, and reflect light with breathtaking brilliance. It's like preparing a tiny, perfect, jewel-encrusted stage for a glittering performance of light and color, ensuring the star of the show has the very best platform for its dazzling appearance. As you meticulously outline each element, the bold initial, the flowing tendrils of the border, the tiny space for a future drollery, you begin to vividly imagine the vibrant colors that will soon fill these carefully delineated spaces. The deep reds, luminous blues, rich greens, and above all, the dazzling golds will leap from the page, transforming the aesthetic black text into a riot of sacred beauty and visual storytelling. The quiet hum of other scribes continues, a background symphony of diligence, but your focus is entirely on the precise, unwavering dance of your quill, sketching the initial forms of these future masterpieces. The atmosphere within the scriptorium feels charged with creative potential, a silent promise of the splendor to come. You are laying the essential groundwork, blending the sacred duty of copying text with the joyous, vibrant expression of visual art, a quiet burst of artistic brilliance waiting patiently to erupt. The precision now will guarantee the splendor later. With the intricate outlines of your illuminations now delicately drawn and the promise of future brilliance etched onto the parchment, a palpable sense of anticipation fills the quiet air of the scriptorium. For a new, almost magical element is about to enter the scene, bringing a shimmering, almost ethereal quality to your work, the application of gold leaf. This isn't just about adding a bit of sparkle or an expensive flourish, though it certainly achieves that with breathtaking elegance. More profoundly, it's about invoking a profound sense of the divine, of preciousness, of the enduring value and sacredness of the words and images you are bringing to life. Gold leaf, with its unique ability to catch and reflect light, seems to possess a living glow that no earthly pigment can replicate, adding a depth and spiritual richness that appears to transcend the very page itself, literally radiating light from the vellum. The meticulous process begins with the gesso, that slightly raised, smooth preparation layer that you painstakingly applied in the previous step to every area destined to receive the gold. This gesso, typically made from a carefully blended mixture of finely ground gypsum or chalk and a binder like glue or egg white, provides a perfectly stable and slightly textured surface for the gold to adhere to. Crucially, it also allows the gold to sit slightly proud of the page, even if by only a fraction of a millimeter. This subtle elevation maximizes its reflective properties, catching the light from various angles and giving the illumination a remarkable, almost three-dimensional quality, as if the gold is floating just above the parchment. You run your fingertips over the smooth, slightly raised texture of these prepared areas, feeling the perfect, almost porcelain-like bed ready to cradle the shimmering metal. It's a testament to the unseen preparatory work that underpins such visible splendor. Next comes the gold leaf itself. This isn't solid gold in a thick, unyielding form, of course, but pure gold that has been hammered or rolled into incredibly thin sheets, often astonishingly thinner than a human hair. These sheets are so delicate that they are almost translucent against the light, shimmering even before they're applied. And they are typically handled with extreme care, using specialized tools, as even a breath or a slight tremor of your hand could crumple or tear them irrevocably. You might use a gilder's tip, a wide, flat brush made of the softest squirrel hair, to delicately pick up a single sheet of gold leaf. The subtle static electricity generated by the natural bristles helps the fragile gold cling momentarily to its surface, making it surprisingly easy to lift. Then, with a slow, utterly deliberate movement, your breath held, you carefully lay the gold leaf over the prepared gesso area. It's a moment of exquisite tension, a bit like trying to place a weightless, shimmering butterfly wing onto a precise spot without tearing it, a dance of delicacy and precision. The gold shimmers even before it is set, a promise of its eventual brilliance, a tiny piece of captured sunlight now ready to adorn your page. Once the gold leaf is perfectly in place, adhering gently to the gesso, you use a burnisher to truly fuse it to the page and bring forth its maximum luster. Your burnisher is typically a smooth, highly polished hard stone, often a piece of agate or hematite, perhaps even a canine tooth or a piece of specially shaped smooth glass, meticulously set into a handle. With gentle yet firm rhythmic strokes, you carefully rub the burnisher over the applied gold leaf. This burnishing process does several vital things. It not only secures the gold permanently to the gesso, preventing it from flaking, but it also compresses and polishes the gold, bringing out its maximum luster and a breathtaking mirror-like finish. You can almost feel the gold come alive beneath the stone, transforming from a dull, slightly crinkled sheet into a surface that reflects the light with astonishing brilliance, a true conduit for captured light. It's a moment of profound transformation, where the mundane becomes the magnificent, where light seems to be physically drawn onto the page and held there. You have to be incredibly careful not to scratch the surface, as even a tiny imperfection, a stray speck of dust, or a minute tremor would be glaringly obvious on such a highly reflective material, marring its perfect, pristine appearance. Mainstream fact number 8. The extensive and often lavish use of gold leaf in medieval manuscripts was not merely for decorative purposes or a simple display of wealth, although it certainly served those functions too. More profoundly, it held immense symbolic significance, widely understood to represent divine light, the eternal nature of truth, the celestial realm, and the preciousness of the sacred text itself, elevating the manuscript beyond a mere book into an object imbued with spiritual power and heavenly radiance. The exorbitant cost of gold leaf also intrinsically reflected the immense value placed on the manuscript as a whole, both spiritually and financially. A quirky tidbit: some surprisingly earthy medieval recipes for gesso, designed specifically to improve the adhesion of the gold and ensure its longevity, actually included small amounts of garlic juice or onion juice in their mixtures. Imagine the faint, unexpected, slightly pungent aroma that might have subtly wafted from your freshly illuminated initial if your scriptorium subscribed to that particular concoction. Historians still widely argue whether the specific techniques for applying and burnishing gold leaf, particularly the precise composition of the gesso, varied significantly across different monastic scriptoria or artistic workshops, or if a relatively standardized and highly guarded method was widely adopted across medieval Europe, passed down secretly through generations of master illuminators. You, however, are focused entirely on the method passed down through your own master illuminator, a technique honed over generations to achieve this breathtaking perfection. As you meticulously work, the quiet air of the scriptorium seems to hold its breath, hushed and still, as if respecting the delicate alchemy taking place. The only sounds are the gentle rustle of the gold leaf as you delicately lift it, almost weightless, and the soft, rhythmic strokes of the burnisher as it patiently coaxes forth the metal's hidden brilliance. The light from the single oil lamp or the carefully trimmed candle catches the newly applied gold, creating tiny, dazzling reflections that dance across the page and flicker playfully in the corners of your vision, illuminating the sacred words. You feel a deep sense of awe, a direct, tangible connection to the long line of unseen artisans who have used this same ancient technique to create objects of enduring beauty and profound spiritual significance. The gold transforms the ordinary parchment into the extraordinary, elevating the copied words and sketched images to a higher plane of existence, making them truly glow with an inner light. It's a truly magical moment where the earthly and the divine seem to touch, where light is captured and held on the page, waiting to be revealed to the reader for centuries to come. The subtle warmth that emanates from the burnished gold as it reflects the lamplight feels almost alive, a silent testament to the material's innate power and the craftsmanship that unleashes it. With the shimmering gold now burnished to a mirror-like perfection, its celestial glow firmly embedded within the parchment, your manuscript is ready for its most vibrant and visually captivating transformation, the miniature artistry. This is where the illuminator truly comes alive, translating the abstract concepts of the text into concrete, vivid imagery, depicting scenes, figures, and narratives that enrich the text, deepen its meaning, and captivate the eye. These aren't just small paintings, they are tiny worlds meticulously crafted within the confines of the manuscript page, often in a space no larger than your thumb. Each one a window into a sacred story or a historical event. You turn to your palette, where the powdered pigments, painstakingly prepared and mixed with their respective binders like egg yolk or gum arabic, await. Each color is a little reservoir of vibrant potential, ready to burst forth onto the vellum. You select a very fine brush, often made from the softest squirrel or sable hair, so delicate that its tip can create lines as fine as a whisper, almost invisible to the naked eye until the ink is applied. The key to successful miniature painting is immense patience and an incredibly steady hand. You can't rush this. Every single stroke is deliberate, every shade carefully considered, every tiny detail essential to the overall impact. This is not the place for impulsive gestures or hurried work. You begin with the background elements of the miniature, establishing the setting for your scene. This might involve a stylized landscape of rolling hills, rendered in soft greens and blues, a glimpse of an architectural interior with intricately tiled floors and arched doorways, or a deep, luminous blue sky, perhaps dotted with stylized white clouds or glimmering stars. You apply thin, translucent washes of color first, building up the layers gradually, almost like applying multiple thin glazes. This layering technique is crucial. It allows for remarkable depth and luminosity in the colors, preventing them from looking flat or muddy. You might mix a pale sky blue from ground azurite, carefully brushing it onto the prepared area, then adding faint wisps for clouds. The light source within the miniature, though often idealized rather than realistically depicted, is carefully considered to create subtle highlights and shadows that give the figures and objects a sense of form and three-dimensionality, making them leap slightly from the page. Next, you move to the figures themselves: saints, kings, allegorical representations, or scenes from daily life, depending on the specific text you are illustrating. You apply the local colors first: the deep indigo of a tunic, the rich russet of a monk's cloak, the pale, delicate pink for skin tones, built up from multiple translucent layers to give a lifelike glow. Then, with even finer brushes, you add the incredibly intricate details: the delicate folds of drapery, the expressive features of a face. Even on such a tiny scale, the eyes are often given particular attention, for they are believed to be the windows to the soul of the figure, drawing the viewer into their narrative. The intricate patterns on clothing, the precise depiction of a sacred object. This is where the miniaturist's skill truly shines, transforming blobs of color into recognizable, emotive forms. The process of adding fine lines and highlights is crucial for bringing the miniature to life and giving it definition. You might use a dark brown or even black ink for outlining figures and defining contours, giving them crisp definition against the background and emphasizing their form. For highlights, you could use a brighter pigment or even tiny, shimmering touches of shell gold, which is gold powder mixed with a binder, applied like paint, giving a slightly different effect than gold leaf, to make specific details sparkle. The gleaming edge of a sword, the radiant halo around a saint's head, the glint in an eye, or the delicate details of a piece of jewelry. The delicate brushstrokes build up, creating volume and depth within the small space. Each tiny stroke an act of careful control and immense precision, a testament to hours of practice and innate artistic talent. Fun fact number 9. Medieval miniature paintings, though small in scale, were incredibly detailed and complex. They often served as powerful visual commentaries or mnemonic devices, helping readers grasp complex narratives, understand intricate theological concepts, or remember key figures and events at a glance. They were not mere illustrations added as an afterthought, but integral parts of the book's intellectual and spiritual content, designed to be read and contemplated alongside the text. A quirky tidbit: to achieve truly vibrant and luminous colors, some illuminators would painstakingly apply a thin layer of gold leaf under certain pigments, particularly rich reds and deep blues, which would then be painted over with a translucent layer of the chosen pigment. This technique, sometimes called gold hatching or chrysography, gave the colors an almost ethereal glow, as if they were lit from within, catching the light in a breathtaking way. It's like putting a tiny secret spotlight under your paint, only centuries ago. Historians still widely argue whether the precise iconographic choices in medieval miniatures were always dictated by strict theological guidelines and established artistic conventions, or if illuminators had more artistic license to interpret scenes and figures, allowing for greater individual expression and regional variations in their depictions. You, however, are focused entirely on making sure your version of St. George slays the dragon with appropriate dramatic flair and the perfect shade of green for the beast's scales. The light in the scriptorium, whether from the natural light filtering through the window during the day or the steady, unwavering lamp by night, illuminates your work, making the colors pop and the gold shimmer with every subtle shift of the manuscript. You often lean close, sometimes even holding a magnifying glass made of polished quartz or glass, to ensure every tiny detail is perfect, every hair fine, every dot of color precisely placed. The air might be thick with the faint, earthy scent of pigments, a reminder of their natural origins, mingling with the dry scent of vellum. This is a quiet, intense period of work, where the artistry takes precedence and the world outside simply fades away into a distant, irrelevant hum. You are not just painting a picture, you are breathing life into the words, adding a visual layer that was as important, if not more so, than the text itself for many medieval readers, a testament to the power of visual storytelling in an age of limited literacy. The figures on the page seem to almost breathe, their stories told not just in words, but in brilliant hues and gleaming gold, speaking directly to the soul of the reader. With the vibrant miniature paintings now dry, their colors radiant and their gold leaf shimmering, the individual leaves of your manuscript have truly begun to embody their potential, each one a testament to meticulous artistry. However, a book is not merely a collection of isolated pages. It is a unified, cohesive whole designed to be handled, read, and preserved as a single, durable object. This brings us to the crucial, often overlooked, and remarkably robust art of bookbinding, a process that truly transforms a stack of decorated parchment sheets into a lasting, cherished volume. Your journey now takes you from the quiet work of the scribe and illuminator to the more physical, structural realm of the binder. The very first step in binding, after all the individual pages have been completed, text copied, initials added, miniatures painted, and all corrections made, involves their meticulous arrangement and collation into quires. Imagine a modern book where a signature is a folded sheet of paper. In the medieval world, quires were bundles of 2 or more folded sheets of parchment, nested inside one another. Typically, a quire might consist of 4 sheets, meaning 8 leaves or 16 pages, folded once, creating a quaternion. You take your perfectly finished parchment sheets, each a work of art in itself, and carefully fold them down the middle, ensuring the fold is crisp and precise. Then, you meticulously gather these folded sheets, nesting them inside each other in the correct numerical and sequential order. This careful collation is absolutely vital. A single sheet out of place now would mean a misbound book with pages appearing in the wrong order. Imagine trying to read a story where Chapter 5 suddenly jumps to Chapter 10. You might use small, almost imperceptible quire marks or leaf numbers, often a letter or Roman numeral, placed discreetly on the lower corner of the first or last page of each quire, along with individual leaf numbers, to ensure perfect sequence. These guides, known as collation marks, were indispensable for the binder, ensuring the final assembly was flawless. Once the quires are perfectly assembled, they often undergo a process called pricking and ruling for sewing. Similar to how you pricked the pages for writing lines, the quires themselves needed precisely spaced holes along their central fold. These holes would guide the binder's needle during the sewing process, ensuring that each quire was attached squarely and consistently to the others, creating a perfectly aligned book block. You might see a dedicated tool, a small multi-pronged awl, designed to create several evenly spaced holes with a single press, ensuring uniformity across all quires. This preparatory work is silent and precise, a continuation of the meticulous nature of the entire manuscript production process. The next critical step involves preparing the sewing supports. These are the strong, durable cords or strips of leather, often made from taud or alum taud leather, which is white and flexible, that will form the very spine of the book, acting as the foundation upon which the quires are sewn. These supports are typically stretched horizontally across a sewing frame, a sturdy wooden device resembling a simple loom. You prepare several lengths of these cords, determining their number and thickness based on the size and weight of the manuscript. A large, heavy Bible might have 5 or 6 thick cords, while a smaller prayer book might have only 3 or 4 thinner ones. Mainstream fact number 10. The medieval bookbinding process, unlike modern adhesive binding, relied entirely on incredibly strong and flexible sewing, where each quire was individually sewn through its fold and then securely attached to horizontal sewing supports running across the spine. This meticulous method created an exceptionally durable and long-lasting book block, designed to withstand centuries of use and handling, far more robust than most modern paperbacks. As you prepare the sewing supports, you might notice the subtle scent of leather mingling with the lingering aroma of parchment and dried pigments. It's a distinct and earthy smell, a testament to the raw materials that form the very backbone of your book. These supports are not merely decorative, they are the structural skeleton of the entire volume, bearing the immense tension and weight of the pages for hundreds of years. A quirky tidbit: some medieval binders would intentionally make the sewing supports slightly unevenly spaced, not out of sloppiness, but to create a subtle, almost imperceptible ridge along the spine of the book after binding, which some scholars believe served as a tactile identifier for specific texts, or simply offered a pleasing, textured feel to the hand. Historians still widely argue whether medieval bookbinders primarily used wooden sewing frames, often referred to as sewing presses, as standardized equipment across all workshops, or if simpler, more improvised methods of holding the supports taut were common, particularly in less well-equipped scriptoria. You, however, know that your wooden sewing frame, sturdy and reliable, is essential for keeping those supports perfectly aligned and under tension as you begin the delicate work of attaching the quires. The careful arrangement of the quires, their precise pricking, and the taut preparation of the sewing supports mark the fundamental beginning of the binding process. It's a phase that requires a shift from the delicate, focused work of the scribe and illuminator to the more practical, structural skills of the binder. Each step, though seemingly simple, is absolutely crucial for the longevity and functionality of the finished volume. The aim is to create a book block that is not only robust, but opens smoothly and lies flat without undue strain on the delicate parchment leaves. You can almost feel the potential energy in the carefully stacked quires, ready to be transformed from loose sheets into a coherent, formidable whole. The quiet hum of the scriptorium continues, now joined by the subtle creak of the sewing frame as it awaits its first quire. This is where the individual pages truly begin their journey towards becoming a single, magnificent, and enduring book. With the quires meticulously prepared and the sewing supports tautly stretched on the frame, you now embark on the core process of binding, stitching, and board attachment. This is where the individual gatherings of parchment begin their transformation into a cohesive, robust book block, a testament to medieval engineering and meticulous handcraft. It's a rhythmic, almost meditative process, where every stitch contributes to the strength and longevity of the entire volume, building a monument of knowledge one careful loop at a time. The air around you, once filled with the faint scent of ink and parchment, now subtly carries the earthy aroma of natural fibers and freshly cut wood, a testament to the tactile, physical nature of this stage. You take the first quire, the very first gathering of your manuscript, and position it carefully against the sewing supports on the frame. Your fingers, calloused from countless hours of similar work, deftly guide a strong linen thread, sometimes waxed with beeswax to increase its durability and prevent tangling, through the pre-pricked holes in the central fold of the quire. You begin by knotting the thread at one end of the quire, often around the outermost support, ensuring a secure anchor that won't give way over centuries. Then, with a long, specialized binding needle, you pass the thread in and out of the fold, looping around each of the vertical sewing supports. Imagine performing a complex, multi-threaded suture, meticulously joining each section with an almost surgical precision. The thread emerges from the quire, wraps around a support, and re-enters the quire on the other side, forming a strong, unwavering link. Each stitch is pulled taut, but not so tight as to tear the delicate parchment, creating a perfect balance of tension and flexibility, essential for a book that will open smoothly and last for generations. This delicate balance ensures the book block remains both sturdy and pliable. As you finish sewing the first quire, you take the next quire in sequence, align it perfectly above the first, and continue the sewing process. This time, as the thread loops around the supports, you also connect the new quire to the previous one with a series of intricate kettle stitches at the head and tail, the top and bottom edges of the book block. These small interlocking stitches, often hidden later by decorative elements, are vital for creating a continuous, strong chain along the spine, preventing the quires from shifting or coming loose over centuries of use. It's a continuous, flowing motion, where each new quire is not just sewn to the supports, but also organically joined to its predecessor, building the book block one sturdy section at a time. The rhythmic pulling of the thread, the subtle creak of the sewing frame, and the rustle of the parchment are the only sounds, a testament to your unwavering concentration and the quiet hum of creation. You're building the very skeleton of the book, piece by solid piece. Once all the quires are sewn onto the supports, you have a solid, flexible book block. The ends of the sewing cords extend beyond the top and bottom of the newly formed spine, looking a bit like a neat horizontal fringe. These extending cords are absolutely critical for the next step, attaching the wooden boards. Medieval book covers were typically made from thick, sturdy pieces of wood, usually oak or beech, precisely cut to size and thickness, providing immense protection for the precious parchment within. Imagine these as the ultimate hardcovers, designed not just for aesthetics, but for true, unyielding protection against the ravages of time and clumsy handling. You meticulously bore holes or channels into the edges of these wooden boards, aligning them precisely with the protruding sewing cords. Then, with incredible care and strength, you thread the ends of the sewing cords through these prepared holes or channels in the boards. Once threaded through, the cords are then hammered or pegged down into the wood, sometimes fanned out and glued, creating an incredibly strong, almost inseparable bond between the flexible book block and its rigid protective covers. This process, often called lacing on the boards, is what gives medieval books their remarkable durability. It's why many of these volumes, despite their age, still retain their covers firmly attached, a testament to the ingenuity and robustness of this ancient technique. There's no flimsy glue holding the cover to the spine here. It's a physical, interwoven connection that feels almost alive, incredibly strong, a handshake between hide and wood that will last for half a millennium or more. Mainstream fact number 11. Unlike modern books where covers are typically glued to a flexible textile spine, medieval bookbinding involved directly attaching the rigid wooden cover boards to the main book block by lacing the sewing supports, cords or thongs, through channels in the boards. This structural integration made the entire volume exceptionally strong and ensured the covers remained firmly attached for centuries, even with heavy use, providing a far more robust protective casing. A quirky tidbit: some binders, when lacing on the boards, would intentionally leave a small, subtle bulge or shoulder along the spine of the book block near the sewing supports. A practice that not only provided extra protection to the text block's edge, but also subtly influenced the way the book opened and sat on a shelf. This subtle design element sometimes allowed books to be stored flat more efficiently without damaging the spine, a remarkably practical consideration. Historians still widely argue whether the choice of specific wood for the boards, oak, beech, poplar, was primarily driven by local availability and cost, or if certain types of wood were favored for their particular grain, density, or resistance to warping, suggesting a more deliberate and qualitative selection process by medieval binders, perhaps even based on regional forestry. You, however, are just grateful your boards are perfectly flat and ready for their task, sourced from a nearby, reliable timber merchant. The subtle scent of the beeswax-coated thread and the dry, earthy aroma of the wooden boards now mingle with the familiar smell of parchment and ink, creating a distinctive bouquet that announces the binding process is well underway. You feel the tangible weight of the assembled book block in your hands, no longer a loose collection of sheets, but a nascent, formidable volume. The once delicate individual leaves of parchment are now securely bound together, protected by their sturdy wooden shell, ready to withstand the rigors of time and handling. This is a moment of quiet satisfaction, witnessing the book take on its structural integrity, realizing that the knowledge contained within is now safeguarded, encased in a durable, handcrafted vessel that promises to endure for centuries, defying the fragility of mere human existence. Each careful stitch, each meticulously laced cord is a silent promise of longevity, a pledge that these words will survive long after your own hand is dust. With the sturdy wooden boards now firmly laced to the book block, your manuscript has achieved a remarkably solid, almost formidable form, a robust testament to its impending longevity. But the journey isn't over yet. The wooden boards, while protective, are raw and unfinished. Your next task involves the application of a final, luxurious, and highly protective layer: the leather covering and decorative finishes. This is where the book truly takes on its outward identity, transforming from a functional object into a work of art that appeals to both touch and sight, a treasure that reflects its inner richness. You first prepare the leather. Typically, pigskin, calfskin, or goatskin would be used, chosen for its durability, flexibility, and aesthetic appeal. The leather would be carefully selected, cleaned, and then thoroughly soaked in water to make it pliable and easy to manipulate, almost like a damp cloth. You feel the cool, soft, slightly damp hide in your hands, detecting its subtle, earthy aroma, distinct from the parchment you've been handling. It smells of the tannery, a place of industry and transformation, a reminder of the many hands involved in the making of this single volume. It's a bit like wrapping a very precious and slightly expensive gift in the finest, most durable wrapping paper you can imagine, ensuring it's both beautiful and resilient. With the leather softened, you meticulously lay it over the wooden boards, carefully molding it around the spine and the edges of the book. You use specialized tools, perhaps a bone folder or a flat wooden stick, to press the leather smoothly onto the surface of the boards, ensuring there are no wrinkles or air bubbles. The edges of the leather are meticulously folded over the inside of the boards and glued down, creating a neat, strong finish. This careful application ensures a seamless, professional appearance, protecting the underlying wood and providing a tactile, pleasing surface for the reader's hands. This step requires a good eye for detail and immense patience, as any imperfections will be glaringly obvious on the finished product. Once the leather is applied and securely adhered, the book is often put into a press to ensure the leather dries smoothly and tightly, conforming perfectly to the shape of the boards and spine. This compression also helps to bond the leather firmly to the wood, preventing any future warping or lifting. While the leather is still damp, and sometimes even after drying, the book often receives its decorative blind tooling. This is where intricate patterns, designs, or even small images are impressed into the leather using heated brass tools, or sometimes carved wooden stamps. These tools, often called fillets for lines, rolls for continuous patterns, or palettes for individual stamps like fleur-de-lis or rosettes, are heated gently over an open flame, then carefully pressed onto the damp leather. The heat and pressure darken the leather permanently, creating a rich, embossed pattern that is both visually appealing and adds another layer of texture to the cover, without the use of additional color or gold. It's a subtle, elegant form of decoration, relying on the natural beauty and transformative properties of the leather itself. Mainstream fact number 12. Medieval book covers were typically made from sturdy wooden boards covered in leather, which was then often decorated with blind tooling, impressed patterns without gold or color, and sometimes metal fittings like clasps and bosses designed to protect the precious parchment leaves within from damage and environmental wear. Beyond the blind tooling, many medieval books were further enhanced with metal fittings. These were not merely decorative flourishes, they served crucial practical purposes. You might see metal bosses or corner pieces, often made of brass or bronze, affixed to the corners and sometimes the center of the covers. These raised metal elements protected the leather and the wooden boards from abrasion when the heavy book was slid across a table, stacked with other volumes, or stood on its side, a common practice when books were few and precious. Imagine a book without these, constantly being scraped and damaged. These small metal additions were essentially medieval book armor, preventing wear and tear. Perhaps the most important metal fittings were the clasps. These ingenious devices, often made of brass or leather straps with metal catches, were attached to the edges of the boards, allowing the book to be securely fastened shut. This served multiple critical functions. It kept the parchment leaves pressed together, preventing them from warping or cockling, curling due to changes in humidity. And it also protected the delicate foredge of the pages from dust and damage. Plus, a tightly closed book maintained its shape far better over time. A quirky tidbit, some medieval clasps were incredibly elaborate, featuring intricate engravings, decorative piercing, or even small symbolic animal figures, almost like miniature pieces of jewelry attached to the book, hinting at its owner's status or the book's specific content. Historians still argue whether the choice of particular decorative motifs in blind tooling and metalwork on medieval bindings, such as intricate knot patterns or specific animals, always held deep symbolic meaning, or if they were largely influenced by regional artistic trends and the availability of certain skilled artisans and their specific tools. You, however, are simply focusing on making sure these clasps click satisfyingly into place, knowing they'll hold the precious contents secure for centuries. The scriptorium's calm now resonates with the soft taps of a small hammer as you gently drive in the tiny nails or rivets to secure the metal bosses and clasps, and the gentle creak of the press as the leather dries. The distinct, warm, and somewhat animalistic scent of the finished leather binding fills the air, mingling with the last hints of parchment and ink, creating a rich, complex aroma that is the very essence of a medieval book. You run your hand over the smooth, firm leather, feeling the satisfying texture of the blind tooling, the cool, solid presence of the metal fittings. This is the final protective layer, the outer skin that will safeguard the intellectual and artistic treasures contained within. The book is now a true self-contained unit, ready to face the world, its long journey from raw hide to finished masterpiece almost complete. It's no longer just a collection of pages, but a formidable, beautiful, and deeply practical object, designed to last. With the leather expertly applied, the blind tooling meticulously impressed, and the protective metal fittings securely in place, your monumental labor is nearing its glorious conclusion. What stands before you now, resting heavily on your sturdy wooden desk, is the finished tome revealed. It's no longer a collection of separate elements, rawhide, simple feathers, crushed minerals, and loose sheets, but a unified, robust, and utterly magnificent object, a testament to countless hours of dedicated craftsmanship, collaborative effort, and an enduring respect for knowledge itself. You lift the book gently, feeling its considerable weight and the solid presence of its wooden boards. It possesses a distinct solidity, a tangible sense of ancient gravitas that is utterly unlike any mass-produced book you might encounter today. The smooth, cool leather covering feels supple yet firm beneath your fingertips, its subtle texture revealed by the blind tooling that patterns its surface. You trace the intricate lines and motifs with your fingers, feeling the slight indentations, appreciating the quiet elegance of a decoration that relies on shadow and light rather than overt color. The metal bosses at the corners and perhaps the center glint softly in the lamplight, catching your eye, their polished surfaces reflecting the dim illumination, a quiet promise of protection. You snap the metal clasps shut, feeling the satisfying click as they secure the covers tightly, keeping the precious parchment pages firmly pressed together, a gesture of finality and safeguarding. This simple act of closing the book, of hearing that distinct sound, is a profound moment of completion, marking the culmination of months or even years of painstaking work. You open the finished tome, feeling the subtle give of the spine, and gaze upon the first pages. The text you meticulously copied in its elegant, uniform script flows in perfect columns, each letter a testament to your steady hand and focused mind. The vibrant initial capital letters, with their intricate interlace or delightful drolleries, burst forth from the black text, drawing the eye, beckoning the reader deeper into the content. And then the true spectacle, the illuminated miniatures. Their colors are vivid, luminous, almost glowing from the page, a testament to the purity of the pigments and the skill of the illuminator. The gold leaf, painstakingly applied and burnished, shimmers with an internal light, reflecting the ambient glow of the scriptorium, seemingly radiating holiness and importance, transforming the flat page into a window to another realm. Each figure, however small, possesses a distinct presence. Each scene tells a story, beautifully rendered in miniature, a visual feast complementing the textual narrative. The beauty of a medieval manuscript, especially a highly illuminated one, lies not just in its individual elements, but in their harmonious integration. The delicate balance between the black text and the vibrant colors, the way the intricate borders frame the columns of script, the perfect alignment of the lines, all contribute to an overwhelming sense of order, beauty, and quiet grandeur. This is not merely a book to be read, it is an object to be admired, touched, studied, and perhaps even revered. It carries the weight of centuries of knowledge, the devotion of countless hands, and the artistry of a bygone era. It's truly a tactile experience. You can feel the subtle texture of the vellum, the slightly raised gold, the smooth polish of the metal, and the reassuring heft of the wood. Mainstream fact number 13, a fully completed and illuminated medieval manuscript was an incredibly valuable object, often commissioned by kings, queens, wealthy nobles, or high-ranking clergy, and could cost as much as a small estate, a vineyard, or even a warhorse, reflecting the immense labor, precious materials, and skilled artistry involved in its creation. Owning such a book was a profound statement of wealth, status, and piety. Quirky tidbit, some medieval books actually had small, specially made reading pointers or bookmarks attached to the binding, often made of a silk ribbon or a thin piece of leather, occasionally with a decorative knot or a tiny metal charm. These weren't just for marking your place. They were sometimes designed to point directly to a specific line on a page, a primitive form of interactive guidance for the reader. Imagine trying to read an intricate text without losing your place and having a built-in pointer. Historians still widely argue whether the precise dimensions, binding styles, and overall aesthetic choices for medieval manuscripts were predominantly influenced by their intended function, e.g., a sturdy, portable prayer book versus a massive, chained choir book, or if regional artistic schools and local patron preferences played a more significant role in dictating the final appearance of these incredibly valuable objects. You, however, are simply basking in the quiet glory of this completed work, knowing it will outlive generations. You gently turn the pages, the parchment rustling with a soft, dry whisper, each turn revealing a new tableau of text and art. You smell the faint, lingering scent of the materials, the dry, earthy aroma of the vellum, the subtle metallic tang of the iron gall ink, the sweet notes of the beeswax used in the thread and possibly on the leather, and the unique, sometimes pungent scent of the natural pigments. It's a sensory symphony that speaks of history, craft, and dedication. This book is a physical manifestation of knowledge, carefully nurtured and brought forth. It's designed not just to transmit information, but to inspire awe, to elevate the spirit, and to stand as an enduring testament to human faith, scholarship, and artistic endeavor. You close the clasps again, feeling their solid closure, knowing that within these covers lies a world preserved, a legacy secured, a silent sentinel against the erosion of time. The scriptorium feels quieter now, as if the very air acknowledges the profound completion of your task, a grand accomplishment that will echo through centuries. You hold the completed manuscript in your hands, its weight a comforting testament to months, perhaps even years of tireless work, a tangible monument to perseverance. Yet, despite the immense dedication poured into their creation, medieval manuscripts faced an array of challenges, both during their production and throughout their long lives, that threatened their very existence and made their enduring preservation a constant, quiet struggle. Reflecting on these threats truly highlights the incredible resilience of these ancient tomes and the sheer luck involved in their survival to this day. During the scribal process itself, there were countless opportunities for mishap. Think of the natural flaws in the parchment, a thin spot, a forgotten hair follicle, a tiny tear that might only become apparent after days of writing. Imagine the delicate yet infuriating process of carefully patching a hole with a piece of matching vellum, hoping the repair would be invisible and hold for centuries. Then there were the ever-present risks of scribal error, a slipped quill resulting in an ink blot, a miscopied word, an omitted line, or even a page skipped entirely. Correcting these mistakes was a painstaking process, often involving carefully scraping away the dried ink with a sharp knife, a delicate maneuver that could easily damage the parchment. Or subtly writing corrections in the margins, sometimes with tiny directional symbols pointing back to the main text. And let's not forget the sheer monotony of copying long texts, hour after hour, day after day, a task that could easily lead to mental fatigue and, consequently, more errors. It's like trying to perfectly replicate a massive, complex spreadsheet by hand, with no undo button and every mistake being visible for all eternity. Beyond human error, the working conditions in scriptoria themselves presented challenges. The dim, often fluctuating light from candles or oil lamps strained the eyes, leading to poor eyesight and fatigue. The cold dampness of stone buildings could make the parchment brittle, cause the ink to run, or even encourage the growth of mold. Imagine trying to achieve meticulous detail in a freezing, poorly lit room, your fingers stiff with cold, while trying to ensure your ink doesn't freeze or your parchment doesn't warp from dampness. It wasn't exactly a temperature-controlled ergonomic office environment. And occasionally, a particularly clumsy scribe might accidentally spill a lamp, leading to irreversible damage, or worse, a fire. A quirky tidbit, some medieval scribes would occasionally include small informal notes or colophons in the margins of their manuscripts, complaining about the cold, the bad ink, the difficulty of the text, or even expressing their sheer relief at finishing a long, tedious book. It's a charmingly human touch, a tiny glimpse into their daily struggles, a proto-tweet from the Middle Ages. Once created, the manuscripts faced numerous external threats over their long lives. Fire was, and remains, an enormous danger. Libraries and monasteries, with their wealth of wooden shelves and parchment books, essentially dried animal skin, were highly flammable, and countless irreplaceable texts were lost to accidental fires or deliberate destruction during conflicts. Water damage, from leaks in roofs to floods, could warp parchment, cause ink to run and fade, and encourage destructive mold growth. Insects and rodents were also constant adversaries. Bookworms, not the human kind, but actual beetle larvae, could bore intricate tunnels through hundreds of pages, essentially eating knowledge. Mice and rats, seeking warmth or food, would gnaw at bindings and pages, leaving behind their telltale destruction. You can still see evidence of these natural, insidious destroyers in the tattered edges and curious holes in many surviving medieval books. Then there was the threat of human negligence or deliberate damage. Books could be lost, stolen, or simply allowed to decay from improper storage. During times of war or religious upheaval, manuscripts might be deliberately defaced, disbound, or destroyed, their content deemed heretical or undesirable by new powers. Think of the sheer intellectual destruction that occurred during the English Reformation, when countless monastic libraries were dissolved and their contents scattered or burned. Mainstream fact number 14. Despite the painstaking efforts involved in their creation, vast numbers of medieval manuscripts were lost over the centuries due to a combination of factors, including fire, flood, neglect, intentional destruction during wars or religious conflicts, and the ravages of pests like bookworms and rodents, making the survival of any single medieval manuscript a truly remarkable feat. Historians still widely argue whether the design features of medieval books, such as their incredibly strong, often chained bindings, their robust wooden boards, and their generous margins, were primarily proactive measures explicitly designed to protect the books from these anticipated threats, or if they evolved more organically as practical solutions to the common wear and tear of a physical object handled by many people over centuries. You, however, know that the sturdy construction you've just completed is this book's best chance against the relentless march of time and the unforeseen hazards it might encounter. You might run your hand along a small tear in the parchment that you carefully mended, or notice a faint water stain on a neighboring page that you couldn't quite remove, silent scars that speak of the manuscript's long and perilous journey through time, a testament to its survival. The air in the scriptorium, which has been your world for so long, seems to hold the weight of these historical struggles and triumphs. You feel a profound respect for the resilience of these physical objects, these vessels of human thought and belief. Each surviving manuscript is not just a book, but a kind of survivor, a silent witness to centuries of history, a testament to the enduring power of words and images against all odds. It's a miracle, really, that any of these precious volumes have made it to us, considering the fragility of life and the relentless forces of decay. But here they are, living monuments to the dedication of those like you, the medieval scribes and binders, whose quiet work built the very foundation of preserved knowledge. As the echoes of the historical challenges fade, and you contemplate the sheer resilience of the medieval manuscript you've painstakingly brought to life, you feel a deep, quiet sense of pride and accomplishment. You look at the heavy, completed tome in your hands, its leather binding firm, its metal clasps secure, its pages alive with script and shimmering gold. This is more than just a book. It is a profound and enduring testament to the legacy of the scriptorium's peace and the quiet, monumental impact of the medieval scribe. For centuries, before the revolutionary clatter of the printing press changed everything, the scriptorium was the undisputed heart of learning, culture, and religious devotion in Europe. It was here, in these quiet, often austere rooms, that the intellectual heritage of antiquity and the sacred texts of Christianity were preserved, copied, studied, and disseminated. Without the relentless, meticulous work of countless anonymous scribes, much of our knowledge of classical philosophy, literature, and even the very words of the Bible would have been lost to the sands of time, swept away by the chaos of conquest, disease, and societal upheaval. You, as a medieval scribe, were a crucial link in an unbroken chain of knowledge transmission, a quiet guardian of humanity's accumulated wisdom. It was a role of profound, if often unsung, importance. Consider the sheer scale of the achievement. Every single word, every initial, every miniature, every single page of every single book was produced by hand. Imagine the collective hours, the collective lifetimes poured into these volumes. It wasn't just about copying, it was about accuracy, about artistic excellence, and about dedication to the preservation of what was deemed sacred and vital. The work was slow, painstaking, and often physically demanding, yet it was driven by a deep sense of purpose, a quiet devotion to God, to learning, and to the community. The scriptorium wasn't a factory, it was a sanctuary of focused labor, a crucible where knowledge was forged anew, one precious letter at a time. Mainstream fact number 15. The enduring legacy of medieval scribes lies in their pivotal role as the primary preservers and transmitters of knowledge during a millennium when all books were copied by hand, ensuring the survival of classical texts, religious scriptures, and scholarly works that form the very bedrock of Western civilization. The peace of the scriptorium, that deep, almost tangible silence you've come to know, wasn't just an absence of noise. It was a profound internal quietude, a state of focused absorption that allowed for the profound concentration required for such demanding work. It was a space where the outside world receded, and the immense task at hand filled the entire awareness. This quiet discipline, this monastic stillness, fostered an environment where deep learning could flourish, where contemplation could deepen, and where the meticulous creation of beauty was an act of devotion. Even today, the presence of these ancient manuscripts in libraries and museums evokes a similar sense of hushed reverence, a quiet respect for the thousands of hours of unseen labor that went into their making.
Some medieval scribes, particularly those working on complex liturgical texts, would occasionally develop what was known as scribe's cramp, or writer's palsy, a painful condition of the hand and wrist brought on by the repetitive strain of holding the quill for hours on end, day after day. It was the medieval equivalent of carpal tunnel syndrome, a physical mark of their immense dedication. Historians still widely argue whether the aesthetic preferences for specific medieval scripts, such as the highly decorative and complex textura, or the more rounded and legible rotunda, were primarily dictated by the practical considerations of legibility and speed, or if they reflected deeper cultural values and prevailing artistic trends that influenced scribal schools across different regions of Europe. You, however, know that the script you have mastered is one that allows for both beauty and clarity, a balance struck through careful, deliberate practice. As you gaze at the completed manuscript, you understand that you are part of something far grander than yourself. You are contributing to a vast, invisible library that transcends time and geography. Each stroke of your quill, each dab of color, each turn of your binding tools has woven another thread into the rich tapestry of human knowledge and artistry. The book you hold is a vessel, not just of words, but of human aspiration, faith, and the tireless pursuit of understanding.
It will journey through time, outliving its creators, silently sharing its wisdom with generations yet unborn. A testament to the enduring power of knowledge and the quiet dedication required to preserve it. The soft light of the lamp casts long, dancing shadows, but the book itself radiates a quiet light, a silent promise of knowledge enduring. The day's work, or rather the night's quiet vigil, is drawing to a close. You carefully cover your finished manuscript with a clean cloth, protecting it from dust and the subtle chill of the night. You clean your quill, carefully wiping away any lingering ink, and return your tools to their designated places. The air in the scriptorium feels lighter now, infused with the quiet satisfaction of work well done. You rise from your sturdy wooden stool, your muscles perhaps a little stiff, your eyes a little tired, but your spirit imbued with the calm contentment that only comes from meaningful creation. You cast a final glance at the serene, silent space, understanding its profound significance. The faint whisper of the parchment, the subtle scent of ink and aged wood, and the memory of the light on gold linger in your senses. The world outside still sleeps, oblivious to the quiet triumphs unfolding within these stone walls. You make your way to the exit, perhaps offering a silent nod to any other scribes still hunched over their desks, lost in their own quiet work. The silence of the scriptorium embraces you one last time as you step away, carrying with you the deep peace of a sacred task completed, a profound contribution to the enduring tapestry of human knowledge. The book is done. Its story has been saved. As the soft lamplight flickers, casting long, peaceful shadows, you feel the gentle tug of sleep. The scratching of the quill, the rustle of parchment, the scent of ink and old leather, all those sensory details begin to fade, softening at the edges of your awareness. Imagine the quiet scriptorium now truly empty, the books resting on their shelves, silent witnesses to centuries of human endeavor. The gold on their pages, once brilliant, now whispers of light, a gentle gleam in the darkness. Let the gentle weight of that finished book settle in your mind, a solid, reassuring presence. Its story, and the story of its making, has now unfolded before you, slowly, patiently, like the turning of a very old page. Feel the quiet accomplishment of it all, the enduring legacy of a gentle, dedicated craft. Just breathe, slowly, deeply. Let the lingering peace of that ancient workspace wrap around you, a calm and quiet blanket. Everything is still, everything is safe, everything is now. The book is closed.